The first one you're going to work with is the count function. So you have several. So when it comes to count, usually count the entries. It doesn't do any other arithmetic computation on it. It will just count. Like for example, if I highlight that, you can see from this corner here, I don't know whether you can see it. This is the count. So we have 8 entries. You can be able to like count the number of entries. Now we have logical forms of that. Also we have logical forms of sum, average, etc. We are going to go into now the count, and then we are going to go into now countifs, then SUMIFS. These are logical formulas. They work the same way with in case maybe you have something like average, if they're still logical. Like you'll have to have a certain condition for that calculation to take place. Now, in our case, we are going to start off with the count only. Now, the count is the entries. So we have several ways you can be able to do that. We have 2 methods, and we have 2 formulas for that. We have count A, and then we have count. So count will only work with dates and numbers. Count A, it's like it's count all. Count A is count all. So it can usually count everything, but it usually don't count the blank spaces within wherever you are counting your data from. Now count A is the most widely used. Now when it comes to now count, also it cannot count any blank cell that you have on your worksheet. So yeah, I'll just give an example. Like for example, here I want to use count. Let's start with count A. So is equals to count A, and then I can let's just start with these people here. Then you just close it on enter. You can see we have 8 entries, and it's okay if you highlight, you go here, you can see now we have a count of 8. And now watch what when you delete something, you see it will skip the ones which are blank. So you go ahead and delete another one, you see you have 6 of them. Now the same case will apply to any other thing. So it can count even the numbers here. Can go back to the formula here, press on F2, and then change this to, let's say, the numbers here. Hit on enter, you're going to get the 8 entries. So it will just count the entries, nothing else. The same case, even if you're dealing with numbers, you delete something there, a blank cell will not be counted. So it will just count only the cells that contain values. Now this is count A. It's a little bit different from count is equals to count, in that count can only deal with 2 sets of formats. Now the numbers and the dates. Let me just put a column for date here, and I'm going to enter some dates here. I don't know however way they are going to look, but it's okay. So we have them there. Now I have the dates and we have the numbers. So these are the only things that we can be able to count using the count. Is equals to count, hit on tab, and then you can just go ahead and get the values. Now I have this, I close that, hit on enter. You can see the numbers are counted. But now let me go ahead and do the dates. We're still counting, so let me go and try now to use something like a text form or something. Go back to the formula, and then let's go to something like this. You can see 0, so it doesn't count anything apart from now the numbers and the dates. So that's the difference between count and count A. So count A is count all, regardless of whatever you have there. So about now blanks, there's a formula also. If you want to count how many blanks you have somewhere, like I don't know whether I can create as many as possible. Maybe you have a long column, and in between you have some which are blank. Can actually go ahead and add a column there. So you can see here, this is where the column is ending. I want to highlight this one, shift, want to shade it, yeah. so that we know where the end is. Now we go to this one was count A. This was count A, yeah. Count A. This was count. Okay. Then we go to blank. Now for the blank, you just use the formula for the blank is equals to tab on blank. Where are you going to? Blank. Yeah, you count blank, hit on tab, and now you can see you only need to specify the range. Now first of all, we are going to count where we don't have anything. You see it there. Then you close the formulas, enter, and you can see the cells which are there. There are 36 which are blank. Let's go to this other one here. Is equals to count blanks, and the same case you highlight. I want to highlight up to the comparison table here. Then close, hit on enter, and you can see we have 7 empty cells. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 which are blank. And in case, for example, I go here and I type something, the formula will remove whatever cell that you have here, so it will reduce the count by 1. So you type anything there, the formula will just reduce. Maybe you come here, you delete whatever entry you have there, so the blanks will continue increasing. Yeah, so that's about that. Now let's go to some logical formula. There's several things that we need to learn. Sum, SUMIFS, and SUMIF. Now sum will just be direct. You know, we've been doing that. So let's take, for example, the total of that will be, you highlight everything there, then alt is equals to, it will give you the sum, which is now the direct thing. You can also, instead of doing that, you remember you can just type is equals to sum, and then you highlight your range like that, then you close that, hit on enter, you're going to get the same thing. But suppose maybe you have several criteria that you want to use in doing your arithmetics. Let me make sure this is a table and the borders. Now we are going to start using logics to make maybe just a minute. We want to start using the logical functions to maybe, for example, we want to pull the cells from north, only the north. So that will be hard if you just go ahead and start now picking, this is north, you go pick that value, go to this, but you can just use some ifs. Now when it comes to the logical formula, you have several parts, as you are going to see, is equals to some if, hit on tab. Now the first thing will be the range, and we have the criteria and we have the sum range. Now the range will be where you want okay, first of all, let me highlight everything, and then I'm going to explain it. And then we have the criteria. Criteria, you can use maybe a cell, or you can type, I just only want to get the cells for the north, or maybe the west, or the south. First of all, that's what we are going to start off with. And you type, if you want to type something within your formula, you usually put that within the quotes. I want the cells for the east. So the same thing, you close that, and then because you are done with that argument, you can just put a comma, and then the sum range. What do you want to get? I want to get the cells. So you highlight the range, and then you can go ahead and close your formula, hit on enter, and you can see these are the cells from east. So suppose maybe you want to change to something like the north, you want to see the north, or maybe the west, or any other. You just highlight your cell, then you press on F2, you want to pick something else, you go back to your formula, and this time we want what? We want north, south. Yeah, south. South will be okay because we have several entries. South. Hit on enter, and you can see now this is the sum of all the souths that you have here. So now we are basing this based on only one criteria, which is you are going to use this this column here, and we are going to select the entry. So it's going to ignore everything else and only pick the one that we have specified. So that's now where we have now the formula having several things. Now the sum if, you type sum if, and then the first thing is which column do you want to use to start sorting your data with, and then you highlight whatever specific entry you want the formula to go and pick within the column that you specified, and then what do you want after it finds everything that you have specified in your formula, what do you want to be returned. So this will be now this. We can take this a little bit further, so that instead of going back to the formula, you go back to the formula, you start typing, maybe you might even end up messing the formula. You can reference a cell somewhere. Like here we have north, we have south, let's say east, and we have west. Control copy. So those are the only regions that you have. You can just put them somewhere. So we have 3 of them. So now the thing here is I want to create a data validation so that I can get a drop down where I'll only be selecting. But before we get to that point, I can first of all demonstrate by, now the formula is here. This is the formula embedded there. But then I want to change whatever we have typed here into a cell reference. Let me go and remove everything there south, and after removing, I want to put a cell, a specific cell, so that I can just go ahead and type in that cell, and after searching, then it will just bring me exactly what I've typed there. So I can just go ahead here, or maybe anywhere, you can just select whichever cell. I can just, let me select that one, hit on enter, and you can see this was the north. You can go ahead and change it. Now, instead of changing that all the time, or maybe you can just go ahead, let me type south. You have south, you hit on enter, you're going to get all the cells for the south, the west, east, etc, etc. But instead of doing this, how about we just create a data validation table, so that you just only need to use a drop down to select the, maybe the region. Now I can just go back to the cell. Okay, first of all, I want to, let me say where this will be the country, the region, sorry. So this will be the cell region, and I want to create a drop down here, so that when I click on that, or I select whatever that I want to put there, it will be just automatic. You're going to see in a minute. Now you select the cell that you have. Now you see we have 4 regions, so that will be the north, let me just, north, south, west, and east. Now instead of typing, I can just refer to a certain cell like this one here, and that's where we are going to create a drop down. And you do that by just click on the cell where you want to create that drop down, then you go to data, click on data validation, click on this data validation again, and then here you change this to a list, because we have a list here. And then you click on, you make sure you place your cursor here on the source, then you go and highlight where you have kept your data, then you click on OK. These are the regions, and now you can see we have an icon here which will denote that you have a drop down. So you can just click on that, then select the country, or the region, sorry. So now we can now go back to the formula. Now you remember, now we have the formula, and remember the formula, we have a reference here, so you can remove everything there and reference the cell that you have here. After clicking that, you hit on enter, you can see these are the cells for the east. Go to the drop down, click on it, then go to the south. You can see it will go and grab all the cells for the south. Don't know why you not so cooperative today. East, the same. So I'm sure you now understand. So you can be able to use that. So instead of typing every time, or maybe embedding that in your formula, unless maybe your formula does not change. So if you want to just hard code that in your formula and then leave it, then it's still okay. But if maybe you keep changing, or maybe you want to see several of the regions, then you can just go ahead and create a data validation, which usually come in handy. Now sometimes you might want to like use several criteria, which means that now instead of the regions, you want to also sort by the house. Now you can just go ahead and create several criteria. When you're using some ifs, you can use 2, 3, or even 4 criteria to maybe sort your data and do whatever you want to do. Now we are doing the sum, so that's why we are using sum. So you can use the same with average. So I just selected sum to represent even the average, so because you can average using the same logic. Okay, so let's go to SUMIFS. Now SUMIFS, here you're going to have several criteria. And it's slightly different with SUMIF, because now remember here we started off with the first one. Let me first of all type it. Where you is equals to SUMIF. Now if you see here, let me hit on tab. SUMIF, where the tab. Now you see we have the range, and then we have the criteria, and then we have the sum range. You're going to get them here. Now when you go to now the SUMIFS is equals to SUMIFS tab, you can see now we are starting with the sum range. Now what do you want to add after your criteria? Now I want to know maybe their sales or maybe their commissions. I want the sales. I'm interested in the sales. Now you're done with that, you put a comma, then you go to the criteria range 1. Now the criteria range is the range of the criteria. For example, I want the whole of this, so that will be the criteria range. And in this criteria, what do I want? I want to maybe have south, the specific ones. I want to have south, north, west, etc, etc. Remember, we decided to put a drop down here so that we can be able to reference this. So you can just click on that, so that anytime that we change there, we can be able to like toggle between several regions. Okay, so we are done with the first criteria. So you can just put a comma, you're done. Now you can go to now the second criteria. For the second one, it'll still be the same, the criteria range. I want to sort this by the house. And in that criteria, okay, I'm done with that. Now you go to now the criteria itself. I want to pick the actual person, like the House of Stark, Lannister. I hope you watched Game of Thrones. Just some nonsense. I just grabbed this file from the internet, so that's what I'm using here now. Anyway, if you remember, we have several houses, etc, etc. Now the criteria that I want to use, which is now what you want to pick, I also want to create a drop down for the house, so that I can also pick the house and get to sort whether they are from the north, the south, etc, etc. So in this case, I can type the name of that person like we did in the first formula. Instead of maybe creating a cell reference, you can just hard code the name into the formula. But in this case, I don't want to do that. I want to create a drop down, which will be easier. So I'll first of all reference this cell below this one here, and then we are going to create a drop down later once I'm done with this. So after you're done, this is now the criteria, second criteria. You might have even the third, and so on and so forth. So I'm done with the criteria 1 and 2 and the sum range. So now I can just go ahead and close the formula, hit on enter, and you can see here we are not getting anything, because you remember we are referencing what you have here, and we have not selected, we have not added anything. Now when you look here, we have several of them. I don't have time to go and start looking for one, because you have some repetitions. So I can go ahead and highlight everything there, control copy. I want to create another drop down here. So the same case, you go down there, you go to data validation, click on it, then you change the value to a list, and then the source will be this one here. You're done, click on OK. Now you can see we have some drop downs. Click on that, you can be able to now select individuals. So now you can see Stark is not from the east. So you go to the east, we have where the east we only have Lannister. So if you click on this drop down, I don't know why my mouse today is not being so friendly. So let's pick something like Lannister. You can see now we are getting the sum based on that criteria. So Lannister is from the east, and these are the values. Okay, so you can go ahead and make it as complicated as possible. Now, let's go to something else, like something else, like the south. You see Lannister, you go to the south, you see we have this one there. And also, do we have any other Lannister from the south? Now we have one from east. So you see, it will just go and pick only this one here, because that's the only one that suits the criteria. So you can go ahead and now start being as creative with this as possible. I hope I didn't confuse you. Now we are going to concatenate. I'll always bite my tongue trying to pronounce that. So we have that formula, which, if you remember, when we are using Control E, we were merging several cells contents within the same cell. So the same case will apply here. So you want to merge everything that you have here into one cell. Now you can see we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this, and this. But then we want to have everything within the same column and within the same cell. So let me make this a little bit larger to accommodate what you're going to do. Then is equals to concatenate. You can use the first one or the second one. They all do the same thing. First of all, highlight everything. This is what I want. I close it on enter, and you can see now it merged everything. Now you can still do the same. Is equals to concatenate tab, and then you start highlighting. Maybe in case maybe you don't want to give a range, you want to select individual cells, you'll have to come here, click the first one, put a comma, go to the second one, put a comma, third one. Maybe suppose you don't want to have the employees, you just only want to have the same region, click on that, and then you can close. And you're going to have this. Now, you can see here, when you concatenate, there's no space in between. Maybe you have several numbers, maybe it's I don't know the best use case for this, but sometimes if I want to have a space in between them, you have several ways you can go ahead and do that. But now let me show you how you can be able to do that. This is now merging, kind of appending. You just pick a number and you paste it somewhere, and yeah. So this can go all the way down as usual using this fill handle. I'll just go all the way, but again I want to have a space in between them. It's kinda not so easy. So what you have to do, you can just go back to your formula, and then in between, you see we have we have this between this one and this thing here. We want to put a space in between. So how you do that? The first cell you see the first one here. This is A1, and then you have B1. You go to cell A. Oh, this is not A1. It's A2. A2 and B2. So in between here, this is where I want to put that. So you put a comma, and in between those two commas, I want to add a space. So if you want to type anything within the formula, you need to put them between the quotes. So quotes and a space, then quotes, enter, and you can see now between one and this other name here, there's a space. So if you want to have spaces for each and everything there, you can just go ahead and do that for everyone. Just go space, go to the next one, which is now this one there, put a comma, then quotes, space, quotes. And now you can see now we have the spaces in between them. There you go. So you can do that. Now you can as well maybe separate them using another criteria. Okay, not criteria, using another delimiter. So whatever is separating them. Now for example, between the first one and the second one, instead of the space, maybe I want to put a semicolon or a colon or whatever I want to put there. So you just go back there, you just press on F2 to, I want to edit that formula. But now instead of the space, I want to put either a semicolon or a colon. Let me put a semicolon. Go to the other one here, remove that space, semicolon, this other one here, semicolon, hit on enter, and you can see now in between the entries we have semicolons, and this is usually very helpful in case maybe you are planning to also extract that data out later. Using a delimiter will help in automation, because now you can be able to go ahead and do whatever you want to do with that data. Now control copy. I want to show you how maybe that can be used. Let's assume now we are having a new table, this one, control V. Okay, let me actually paste the values. Now we have them as this, but then I want to split them into individual columns. remember we have now the first one, the second one, and the good thing is because now we have a good delimiter, we can be able to use this to separate them into individual columns. Now this is what I'm going to do. When you click on data, you can see the options that we have here, text to columns. You click on that and you're going to have this pop-up. It's very essential, it's very helpful when you have a huge data set and you want to split them into the individual column. This will be very helpful. Now I don't want to use the width, I want to use a delimiter, because now you see we have something separating our data. So you can just click on next and you can just go ahead. This is the data preview. This is how exactly it's looking like. Now I'm separating mine between a semicolon, so you can just click on semicolons and you can see that the data here is separated between their columns based on the delimiter, the semicolon. Maybe you might have maybe a comma or something else, or maybe a space. If you don't have anything that's being represented here, you can just type whatever is separating your data here on others. But now, because I have semicolons, I need to just only click on that, and then I can either go to next in case maybe I want to do some other things on it. Let me remove the comma. But because my data here is looking okay, I can just go ahead and click on finish. And you can see now my data completely separated into the individual columns. So that might be maybe how you might apply that. That's why sometimes when you are concatenating, it's good to put a delimiter in between them, unless maybe that will not be essential in subsequent steps. Now the same case, we have another concatenate. Now we used the first one is equals to, now let's go to the second one, is equals to concatenate. But now this one is now the full name. This is just a short form, and you're just going to just do exactly the same. Just highlight your things like that, then you close, then hit on enter, and you can see, okay, Control Z, what's not going up. I think I lost power. Yeah, okay. So I think I have concatenate. We are using the second one. Hit on tab, and this one I don't know whether this requires, but let's just experiment. I've not used this one. I actually used the first one, but now I can see. But it's supposed to do the same thing. Now let's go to the first one there. A comma, second comma, that comma. Okay, don't need a comma. Just need to close that, and now you can see now we have everything concatenated. Now let me see if you can be able to select a range. So now you see now the difference between the two, the first one and the second one. The first one, this one, concat, you can be able to select a range. The second one here, you only need to select one after the other. That's me discovering that right now, because I usually don't work on that so much of the time.